our tardiness. This is the Paul Harrell Program. We got a great show for you alongside my co-host, Rob Spencer. We also have special guest in the third chair today. We've got Arkansas State Representative Dwight Tosh with us. We're going to talk Arkansas politics as well as everything else that's in the news today. This is the Paul Harrell Program. It starts right now.
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, folks. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Rob Spencer. Rob, take it away, sir.
Paul, I'm honored to be here as always. Glad that we have an in-studio guest, Dwight Tosh, here with us because, obviously we want to hear about Arkansas politics, but as we know, anything that happens within any particular state oftentimes spills out over to the national scene. And right now we've got, still a killer at large here in the state of Arkansas with this Devil's Den situation. Our guest is a former, and we're going to go through his resume, but a former Arkansas State police officer. So we're interested to hear about that, but then also hear what's happening on the state level and how that's going to affect things, from a national level. Right now, we've got Donald Trump just winning. He just keeps winning with the trade deals that has been passed. I mean, we've got the liberal media who is just trying to cast stones on him. And what do we? It's like the elementary phrase there. Whatever you throw at me sticks. I'm rubber, you're glue.
You're the glue. Whatever you say, sticks
right.
To
whatever
you.
It sticks to me. And so what we're seeing is Chuck Schumer coming out and saying stuff like, "Oh, this is just fake. It's just fake." And I'm like, Chuck, just give the man credit. He just signed the largest trade deal probably in U.S. history, and I'm of a certain age where I haven't witnessed all the trade deals, but it seems pretty big at this point.
Well, they haven't been much for the American people over the last 50 years. State Representative Dwight Tosh, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be with you guys. Thank you for having me.
I haven't talked to you formally in this setting in, I think, at least 5 years.
At least.
So.
We used to do a lot of shows together, and I miss that, and it's good to be back with you.
Absolutely. Well, so I want to start just kind of talking a little bit about Arkansas politics. The 95th General Assembly concluded back this spring. And so I understand you had several pieces of legislation that were quite successful. What do you think the highlights are for you this past session?
And for me, I felt like I really had a good session. I ran approximately 12 bills, and I'm happy to say that all of them passed and been signed into law. Some of them that probably gained statewide attention, and one of them even some national attention was the bill that I ran concerning criminalizing unlawful squatters. And a little history on that bill. It was a little over a year ago. What got me to looking into it was I got a call from a constituent that actually had a job opportunity to move. He moved his family to a new location, but he decided to leave the house where he had in his hometown. He wanted to leave it intact, so when he returned to visit with family and friends, he'd have a place to stay. And he shared with me that a few weeks after he had moved, he returned and found that, when he tried to unlock the door, the lock had been changed. Someone had moved into his house, and when he finally got him to the door, he said, you can imagine how that conversation played out. And so he called law enforcement, is what any of us would have done at that point. The individual told him, said, "No, this is my house now. I'm declaring squatters' rights."
Wow.
And so he calls law enforcement. Law enforcement arrives, and they tell him that basically that's a civil penalty. And it's not a criminal act, and the law enforcement.
It's not trespassing.
No, and I made sure that my colleagues, and I brought that out on the House floor, as I said, do not confuse criminal trespassing with unlawful squatting. When I researched that, I thought the same thing. Mm-hmm. And being 37 years in law enforcement, I just thought they could remove them.
Right.
But if they declare the squatters' rights, that is under the civil code, and so there they have to go down to the courts, get a petition. And if anybody's ever been through the civil process, it takes months. And I was able to find a video where a TikToker from Venezuela had put out a video telling people that when they got to America, when they got here, just declare squatters' rights, and it would take probably anywhere 5 to 6 months or longer to get them out. And once law enforcement finally removed them, then just go find you another place and do the same thing over and over, because there was really no penalty with it. So by criminalizing that under state law, law enforcement cannot arrest you unless a criminal act is committed in their presence. That's just the way the law reads.
Okay.
And so by criminalizing this, and a matter of fact, when I looked at it, all 50 states, at that time, it was a civil penalty. And Florida had passed and criminalized it in Florida. Georgia was doing the same thing. And, of course, then I drafted the bill here in Arkansas that we have, and that bill has been used by property owners' rights group of lawyers out from another part of in another state. They're using that as a model legislation now for other states to follow to criminalize unlawful squatting, which I'm very proud of. So I know that's a lot for me to say.
I just know Rob.
But
Rob being in real estate, I'd love to get your take on this.
So I own rental properties myself,
Yes, sir.
and anytime we have a vacant property, we always have to put. So I hire a property manager, even though I'm legally allowed to property manage myself. I choose to put that in terms of a property manager. Excuse me. And we have to put no trespassing signs on our property. But my property manager advised that, hey, Rob, if you're going on vacation, your personal home, you might want to put no trespassing on your personal home, because you just never know. And I think that we think that we're in a red state and we're protected, because we see about this stuff in California and these other blue states where it takes 2 years, and it's literally bankrupting these property owners. Instead of them being able to say, hey, look, you don't have a valid lease. I own this property. You need to vacate this property. It takes 2 years to go through this
right.
process in some of these states. And we just assume that we're good to go here in this red state. And from what I'm hearing from you, you found out that we're not good to go in this, and so you've drafted legislation to correct that. Give me on a granular level here, like what does it actually mean? So if I own a property and I show up to this property because I'm showing it to a prospective renter, and I find that someone's squatting, and they walk out and say, "Hey, squatter rights." Like they're crossing the southern border and yelling asylum, right? So they're coming into this property and they're saying squatter rights. What would your legislation enable police officers to be able to do at that point?
Great question, and what it will allow them to do. As a matter of fact, the law goes into effect this week, August.
So the governor signed it.
Yes,
everything?
The governor signed it. We had a signing ceremony. But what this law will allow, it will allow law enforcement, and when they get there, instead of, having to tell the property owner, hey, you got to go down and file through the civil process, now they can call law enforcement. Law enforcement arrives when they get there. Once they see that there's not a legal lease agreement or anything, and these people are just taking over the property, then this law will make that a criminal act, and now that's a criminal act being committed in the presence of a law enforcement officer. So now they can remove them immediately.
Oh wow! Okay, so
that changes from being able to, taking 5-6 months, or like you said, 2 years to get people out. And you think about that. They're on your property, using your electricity, sleeping in your bed, and you can't remove them. And you know this, in Arkansas, it's illegal to self-evict. In other words, you can't change the locks on the door.
You're right.
You can't shut the electricity off. So you have to leave all that on, and people are using your electricity. And so when my constituent brought that to my attention, I said, we need to fix this.
Right.
And the more I looked into it, I realized we got a problem. I talked to law enforcement, and they shared story after story with me about how their officers had arrived in these situations and how helpless they felt because they had to tell that property owner, we can't remove them. And that's sad. But I believe, as I said on the House floor, we don't live in a state of might and ever who's the strongest. I'll just come in, I'm going to take over your property, and I'm here and I'm going to stay. This bill puts the rights of that property back to where it belongs, and that's to the property owner. We live in a society of right, not might.
Yeah.
And that's what this bill will do. It returns those rights to the property owner. And so I'm extremely proud of that bill, and I had a lot of support for that bill. The governor was very supportive of it. All law enforcement was, the Prosecuting Attorneys Association, the district court, circuit court judges. I really had no opposition to that bill, and it overwhelmingly passed the House, and it passed the Senate. So the governor, we had a signing, and she signed it into law. Matter of fact, she made, after I filed that bill, as soon as filing opened in November, she made that part of her legislative package, the doing something with unlawful squatters.
So what we have here is, of course, I have a few vacant properties right now, and I have to keep utilities on because if I'm showing that property and I want them to be able to see, hey, look, like this is what it's like to live in this property and all of those things. And so, before this bill, it sounds like, hey, if someone goes in there and declares squatter rights, I can't turn the electricity off, even though I literally only have it on so that I can get it rented out. So give me the burden of proof there if, and I know you may not know exactly here, but if say, hey, I show up and just given that scenario, I'm trying to get this person to vacate this property. They say, hey, I've got squatter rights. And some of them get really crafty. They say, I even got this lease. And, of course, they forged this lease. They went to the library. They printed this out, all of that stuff. What would you do? What would you imagine the police officer would request there in terms of some sort of proof? Would they say, hey, show me what your current lease is, and if it doesn't match what this person has fictitiously produced here, is that kind of the thing that would allow for them to be able to say, hey, you're now criminally squatting,
And the bill covers that. I actually have that language in the bill. In other words, you're the property owner, using the example that you just gave, and you show up, and this individual says, hey, I've got a lease. I've got a lease agreement. And like I said, it may be forged. And I remember in the bill, I remember in committee, one of the legislators on the committee, they asked this question. It was a good question. I gave civil liability protection to law enforcement in this bill, and they wanted to know why I would do that. And I said, well, you're a law enforcement officer. Put yourself in their shoes. And it's just like you just described. They get there. The individual inside the property or inside the house, they produce. It may be a fraudulent lease, but they produce one. Yeah. And the owner is over here saying, that's not a legal document.
Yeah,
I do not have a lease with
them.
it. So you think about the law enforcement officer's got a 50-50 chance of getting it right.
Well, hang on.
Yeah.
Not really, because I think in this scenario, the law enforcement officer is going to know this is a squatter.
Right,
you know what I mean?
But you got to go down the rabbit hole.
Right,
there
you do. But I think in a lot of these situations, what you're doing is you're saying, look, we're going to let him make the judgment call, and he doesn't have to worry about himself.
That's right. Yeah. And also, what the bill does, if you're a squatter and you produce a fraudulent document saying that you have legal rights to be there, then you will be charged with a Class D felony.
Ooh.
Now, the bill also says that if you're the property owner and you claim that document is not legal and you use law enforcement to remove someone that does have a legal right to be there, then you will be charged with a Class D
That's
felony.
very good.
There you go.
Very good.
That's just fair for both sides.
There you go.
So
yeah.
It's hard to argue with that.
If you're going to play the game, play it right and play it fair. But, hey...
and that may have been why you had so little opposition to it, because even in their heart of hearts, the bleeding heart liberal who might say, "Oh, we've got to give them a chance here." It's just a squatter; they're down on their luck and all of that stuff. Even them have to say, "Well, you know what? If that landlord goes in and lies."
That's right.
And says, hey, because they're just trying to get them out of there, because let's just go down this rabbit hole and say, well, maybe they've gotten it re-rented for $500 more per month, and they're using this to try to, that's a squatter. And you're like, well, it's not really a squatter. They've been living here for 3 years, whatever. So that's great. I'm glad that you placed that in there.
As I researched it, and talking with those attorneys, the property rights attorneys, they really helped me a lot. They were from Arizona, and they reached out to me when they saw I filed the bill, and that's something they promote all over the country, is property owners' rights. And so we had a lot of conversations, and like I said, that was one of the things I wanted to make sure is that even the property owner could not take this law and use it or abuse it against someone that had a legal right to be there. So I think we've covered all that. I think we covered all of it in the law.
You really did. It's a very Solomon-esque type of law. It's a pretty wise decision law. It seems like,
So,
what kind of country?
Thank you as a property owner.
Rob, you mentioned the leftist states because we didn't think this could happen in a place like Arkansas.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating, though, that how did America get to this place? Like, whether you're California or Arkansas, like, how did we get to the place where we devalued property rights, personal property rights, to such a degree that we would even allow this to happen? It's absolutely insane. I mean, in the olden days, the idea of squatters' rights would just get laughed at. It wouldn't even be a concept. The law enforcement would show up, and you'd be out. And
so much so that you're allowing property owners, landlords, to just be bankrupt, and because I think that leftists look at evil property owners the same way that they look at McDonald's franchisees when they're talking about minimum wage and all of that stuff. They look at it like, oh, look at how much money McDonald's makes, when it's really, when you're talking about a franchisee, a local franchisee who's lucky to break even some months because they're paying their bills and all of that stuff, and it's a slow month. And you look at it and say, well, there's this evil property owner, and they own all of these properties, and now they're raising rent. Property owners don't raise rent just arbitrarily. We raise rent because our insurance went up, or there was a millage increase, and now we have to pay higher property tax, or we've had a ton of repairs, and we've got to compensate, because most of the time, property owners don't own their property outright. There is a note, a loan note against that property. And so per door, we might make $200, right? Well, okay, now we just had the air conditioning unit go out, and it's a $4,500 repair, right? Now we've killed any profits for that property for the next 3 years, whatever the math is. And I think people just don't look at that. They just look at, this is my situation. This is what I want to do. And I know that's a separate issue than squatters who are coming in here and doing nothing. But I'm just saying it speaks to the mentality of when those squatters go in there, they are fine with somebody going bankrupt because it's not them, right? They don't care because it's not them.
That's right. Their intent is to claim your property and take possession of it, and hopefully this law will prevent that from this.
Well, bravo as a property owner. Thank you.
That was probably one of the big bills. And,
absolutely.
I had, like I said, I had about 12, and had about 4 or 5 of them that attracted a lot of attention, and that one probably got the most.
So,
but
at the state level, what types of different committees are you on?
I serve. This year I'm the assistant pro tem. So the Speaker of the House picked me as one of his assistant pro tems, and I was very honored with that. I serve on judiciary, and I serve on insurance and commerce, and I'm also on rules. Members for that are appointed that by the Speaker. I've been on rules ever since I've been in the House of Representatives, and I'm on ALC, Arkansas Legislative Council this time.
Which one do you dread going to because you're just like, hey, this is not good?
You know what? And that's a good question. And my 2 main committees are Insurance and Commerce and Judiciary. And, Judiciary, with my background in law enforcement, I can really get engaged in some of the legislation coming before that. But insurance and commerce, sometimes I get a little bit overwhelmed with some of the stuff. I'm like, I look to my colleagues on the committee like that they're in the insurance, and I'll go,
like, what do you think?
Yeah, what do you think? And he'll go, you don't want to. Okay. So, but I'm learning. It's really a good committee, but I really enjoy judiciary, and that's kind of more my wheelhouse.
So obviously, we know what the judiciary branch is, right? Obviously, this is our judges, all of this thing. So, what kind of stuff do you guys do on that judiciary committee that affects us and how does it affect us citizens?
Well, the bill that I just talked about, criminalizing unlawful squatting, that came before the Judiciary Committee.
Okay.
That type of legislation is what we hear in before that committee. Obviously, Insurance Commerce deals with insurance and commerce, so they try to assign those bills. Whether if it's a county issue, then it goes before the county committee, and state issues for the state agencies committee. So they will assign a bill to a committee that maybe you would think, why does it go to that committee?
Yeah.
But sometimes,
Yeah, sometimes they do that.
and they do, and you look over here in judiciary, and you look at the agenda, and it's just overwhelming. For an example, and you look over in transportation, and they may not have but 2 or 3 bills on their agenda, and so. At some point, you've got to give some relief to this Judiciary Committee, even though it says Transportation Committee over here. These are all legislators just
Sure.
equal to me. We're all the same.
Critical
So,
thinkers, people
yeah,
that can look at it objectively.
Exactly.
One would hope.
Yeah,
one would
so,
hope, yeah.
But yes, that's a judiciary. Anything to do with the judicial system, it comes before that committee.
That's good.
I'm sorry. I have so many questions, Paul. If you'll allow me, I'm
Well,
usually
I mean,
if you're watching
this is like
Right.
I mean, I've interviewed so many state representatives.
Yeah.
This is the first time you've ever
I
gotten
know
to do
this is
something like
interesting
this.
to me. So if
he really
you're a
does come loaded
baseball
with
if you're a
questions.
baseball fan, like Paul is play by play and I'm the color commentator, right? Like that's basically our roles here. So I'm going more play by play, but I would love to know. I'm a conservative, and I'm not far right by any means. I've got some things where I lean to the left on, and Paul and I differ on those things. But I'm curious, if I'm a legislator and I've got this bill, and I know I'd like to have some bipartisan support with this, right? And I would like to go, what are some of those, like, how do you approach, do you have certain people that you say, hey, look, this is a reasonable person versus this person is burning stuff in the streets here, and I'm being facetious, but, do you, like, how do you approach it where I go in here, I'm like, hey, look, I want to get some bipartisan support for this. What do you look for?
And again, that's a great question. And I had a lot of bipartisan support on all my bills, and the squatter bill, we'll use it for an example. That came before judiciary, and there's probably maybe 5 or 6 Democrats that are on the Judiciary Committee,
And just to remind people that Arkansas has a supermajority Republican
we do.
legislature.
We have 81 Republicans out of 119 Democrats, and I think on judiciary there's each committee has 20 members. That counts the chair, the vice chair, and then 18 that sit around the table.
Yeah.
And so and using judiciary as an example, and using this unlawful squatters bill, once I had filed that bill, what I did with the bill is I went to my colleagues, obviously both Republicans and Democrats, and there's a couple on Judiciary Committee that are Democrats that are attorneys, and so I just took the bill to them and I said, I would like for you to look at this. I believe this is the way we should be conducting state business, and I said, I want you to look at this.
You value their opinion about
things.
things.
I said, I want you to tell me if you see anything in here that gives you heartburn or something we need to tweak or something and if I can, I will. If I can, I can't. We'll talk about it. And so I had a lot of input from them. So then when it goes before Judiciary Committee, we've already worked through all that, any issues that anybody had. So I think as a legislator, when you go in there and you try to work and you're trying to get good legislation through, I think it's good to get input. But sometimes when a suggestion is made that you understand it, but you just said, hey, I can't do it. That will change the whole intent of my bill, and I'm not going to do that. Mm-hmm. But at least you give them people an opportunity to voice any concerns that they may have. So I think anytime you do that, and I've learned that lesson from when I was first elected. I just file a bill and I just run that thing, and then I got all this opposition, and I found out that if you reach out, not just to other legislators on both sides, but if you reach out to those that may be stakeholders, whether it be judges or whether it be prosecutors, law enforcement, whoever, reach out to them and get their input. And that's and that makes a world of difference, as you know, when you go to the end of the table and you can sit at the end of the table and you say, I have the support of the state police or the sheriff's association or the prosecutors, or I have the support of the realtors association or you know, landlord association. When you've done all that and you've worked with all those groups, then you can come away with a good bill.
I think we've got, I agree with you. And what it sounds like is, what I hear you say is that, hey, I don't have tunnel vision on my bill, where this is what I think from my, obviously I'm a Republican, but I'm not so tunnel visioned on this that I don't realize that there are varying opinions on this. So I'm going to go and I'm going to get input from these stakeholders, and I'm going to and maybe my path changes a little bit, right? And maybe I look at it and say, okay, well, you know what? Here's the path that I was on, and I can still get there, but maybe I make some adjustments here. And the reason I bring that up is because I think that we're so polarized right now, as in politics, and a lot of folks would say that was the injection of Donald Trump, but I would go back further and say, I think it was more of 2010, 2011. I think with the Affordable Care Act, maybe we've always been polarized. Who knows, right?
Well, yeah, I would add Barack Obama certainly was a polarizing figure.
Yeah, but when you look at the evolution of what Barack Obama was from when he was elected in 2008, when Paul and I I was still a Democrat at that time, and voted for Barack Obama, and I looked at it and I was like, whoa, the Barack Obama of 2011, 2012 leading up to this election was not the 07, 08 Barack Obama. He has changed, and I think that started a lot of that polarization. And I'm not trying to get on my soapbox here, but I can just say that I think that we feel like, as citizens, right, and stakeholders in the community, that we don't have a voice, because our voice, no matter what, is always affected by, hey, if I put this opinion out here, am I going to get canceled by this side of the aisle or this side of the aisle? Like, just bipartisan seems like it's just a foreign idea, at least on the national level.
Well, and I can't argue with that, but I can assure you at the state level, I don't see it there. Obviously, there's going to be certain issues that we're not ever going to agree on. There's certain social issues that, but when it comes to like unlawful squatters or the interlock bill that I'm talking about that saves lives by being able to keep people from driving that are under the influence. Yeah. I had sponsors from both sides, and how do you make a difference in a bill like that saves lives? It keeps a drunk off someone from driving under the influence. What difference does it make what party you're with, as long as you're saving a life out here? So I want to keep those drunks off.
I agree.
And I had sponsors, Democratic sponsors on that, and so. But there are certain issues and we all understand that I try to live by the 3 B's, and that's where I put my conservative values. The 3 B's is bullets, Bibles, and babies. Mm-hmm. And so, that's where I line up.
I can't argue with that.
I'm strong on the Second Amendment. I'm pro-life, and and I ran a bill, and Paul remembers this. He interviewed me about it. I think it was either my first or second term where we recognized the Holy Bible as the state book. Mm-hmm. So you remember that?
I actually I don't remember that, but that's great. I mean,
and we did that, and I mean, when it come time to vote, all the Republicans voted for it.
Sure. Yeah,
Democrats did.
Right. So, yeah. Can you imagine that bill going forward in like Massachusetts or something, and their head literally explodes?
To your point, you were wondering about the polarization on the national level being a lot worse, and I think it comes down to the issues, the bullets, Bibles, and babies. That's kind of the bedrock of where the vitriol comes from is the social issues. Because
if the far left view of that is against all 3 of your B's.
Yes.
Like literally all 3 of your B's are the devil,
Yeah, no bullets, no babies, and no Bible.
No Bible.
Like, get rid of these things.
But my point
what it
being,
is.
when you get away from that type of legislation, you get support. Just like on the ones we've talked about today, the interlock system, the the unlawful squatting, the bills that I ran, enhancing the penalty for someone exiting a vehicle while it's still moving and they're fleeing from law enforcement officers, passing a bill to authorize the Make-A-Wish Foundation to have a specialized. I had overwhelming support on all those bills from both sides of the aisle.
And you don't need it with a supermajority. Like if you're outside of the state.
But still, it's not like, well, he's a Republican and he's running this bill that's going to change the interlock system, that's going to try to help save lives to keep drunks off the road. They vote. People still vote for that. They don't look at like, well, he's a Republican running that bill. So, you have to look, what does the bill do? What's that legislation actually do? And is it going to help my constituents back home? Is it going to save lives? Is it going to make a difference in their lives? And if the answer is yes, then we should be more interested in what the bill does than who's sponsoring the bill.
Amen.
So I'm going to switch gears for a little bit, and I want to ask you about St. Jude. You're you're a childhood cancer survivor, and I want people to know that, because were you one of the first children to go to St. Jude?
Yes. St. Jude had just opened its doors, and when you're admitted at St. Jude Hospital, you're assigned a patient number in the order that you're admitted. And so, in other words, a child being admitted to St. Jude today, their patient number would be around 115,000. So when I was admitted, and I tell that to kind of illustrate what I'm fixing to tell you my patient number is. But yeah, I'm patient number 17.
Wow.
Wow.
And I guess it was, that was 1962. So at the 60th anniversary, they had a big deal at St. Jude, and all the board members there. There was probably 1,000 people or better, and so I was recognized as the first 60-year survivor.
Wow.
Of childhood cancer.
Amen. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that was
something
quite
to be
a journey.
celebrated.
Yeah, and I travel around the country, and I've got about a 30, and I've done quite a bit around Jonesboro here to different civic groups, but it's about a 35 minute story. It's hard to believe you can put all that journey in 30 or 35 minutes, but I tell from when I first got diagnosed to my time here, how St. Jude had just opened, and the timing of the opening of St. Jude was critical to my survival. And then obviously being over there, met Danny Thomas, and
wow,
so
well, I can tell it means a lot, lot to you. Obviously,
As it should. I mean,
now you're almost 70 years old, or you're 60.
You're so kind.
No, you're 70.
This guy should be in politics.
There you go.
I'm sorry.
With that hair.
I'm not going to say the other interval. Then you're almost. What are you, 70? What are you?
I'll be 77 in a couple of months.
Praise the Lord.
77.
So when you think about this, when obviously, you can go down this like we all. If I was 5 minutes earlier, I wouldn't have had this accident or whatever. But if you ever thought about, like, if you were born a year sooner, right?
Yes.
And St. Jude's just didn't exist,
And again, in life, you think about it. In life, we can always play the what if. What if? Mm-hmm. And so, there had been delay after delay of the opening of St. Jude. They kept, how that goes. They're trying to get it up and going.
Sure.
Danny Thomas decided on Memphis, and they just kept having delay. So what if? What if it had been delayed another 2 months?
Yeah.
3 months? Would I be sitting here with you? I don't know. But, in all this, too, I give a lot of credit to St. Jude. And I really do. I give a lot of credit to my parents. But
yeah. Well, I mean, in 1962, and you also think about this too, Rep Tosh. Here, when you're talking about the advances in technology and health, I mean, can you imagine? How many lives St. Jude have saved? Since you were as patient number 17. Good grief.
And I've been back to St. Jude on 5 occasions. Well, I've been back a lot more than that. But it's called a it's a study. In other words, a life study. And I go back, and they put me through this barrage of tests, and they're looking. He made it in 1962. So is it something? So they're looking as to trying to find how I was able to overcome that, what they were able, the kind of treatment they were able to give me, what worked, what didn't work, and so hopefully it helps those kids there today. But
well, when you think about it too, you think about like, all right, so 1962, and your life was saved with childhood cancer, and you think about all the things that you were able to do, right? So you get married, you have children, you have grandchildren, all of these things.
That's right.
This family tree that exists, and all of the things, positive things that you've done in, it's Arkansas politics and all of these things. And I apologize, I don't know what your life was before Arkansas politics, but I can say that all of those things had positive fruit. And we think about that, the impact that we're making.
Exactly.
And St. Jude's is incredible. So it's in Memphis, Tennessee, and Danny Thomas Boulevard, and all of these things, right? What is the most amazing thing that I think about when I think about St. Jude's is how it doesn't cost these people a dime. Not a single solitary dime. And as a person who donates to charity, and we think about all of these slush funds that some of these charities do, right? And when you donate, and 9 cents of every dollar actually goes to something. When you think about the money that goes to St. Jude's and all of the lives that they save, folks, if you're watching nationally and you're looking for a charity to donate to, can we think of a better one? I don't mean to demean other charities, but my goodness.
I love St. Jude's.
St. Jude's is an incredible charity if you're looking for something.
Yeah, and like I said, it was a long recovery. It was a hard road back. The cancer obviously took its toll on me. I was 13 years old and had a great life. Starter on my basketball team, catcher on my baseball team, was healthy and thought it would last forever. And then, it was a long journey back. Took a while for me to get the body back. I had lost my ability to walk. So I had to learn how to walk again.
You went from this basketball player to I can't walk, and as a 13-year-old, we're sitting in the studio, and my 14-year-old son is sitting right out beside the studio playing video games. I can't imagine him not being able to walk.
Right. Exactly. And the thing about it is, it's like when I tell my St. Jude story, I said I didn't choose, just like your 14-year-old son. None of us choose to be sick. None of those kids at St. Jude. Have chosen to be sick, and if they could change it, they would. Yeah, but they can't. So,
thank God, there's an organization that's hospital there.
But I don't want to leave out
them,
giving the good Lord credit either. That's
Absolutely.
what I've been trying to.
No, absolutely.
Thank God for I always say that my faith in God and my family's faith in God, and the prayers that people prayed for this boy right here.
Yeah, saved you. It saved you.
And now, it just is a small part. But now squatters are no longer legally allowed to terrorize Arkansans and property.
Everybody's glad I made it, but the squatters.
Squatters are like, squatters are like, St. Jude.
I've never donated to St. Jude. The squatters say, unbelievable.
Well, hopefully we can tap into some of your Arkansas State Police background here, because I've got some questions about what's happening over there in Northwest Arkansas.
Just real quick. So let's go there first. This is still the update that there hasn't, in 24 hours news cycle, there has not been an update that I have seen other than Arkansas State Police releasing this photo of the person of interest in the Devil's Den double homicide. There's a sketch as well, but of course we covered this the last 2 days on the program, Dwight, and this is just a travesty. Now, I'll continue my speculation from yesterday, because if this is the killer, if this is the person of interest, I don't know who dresses in all black in 110 degrees outside, at Devil's Den State Park. This photo just gives me a lot more questions than answers, because this is not somebody that is dressed to go on a hike. And so, because everybody's trying to figure out, was this a crime of passion or was this planned? Was he trying to kill somebody that day? And so that we still don't have an update. So if you know of any tips, Arkansas State Police telling you to call Arkansas State Police. If you know of anything, his license plate was blacked out, and so I think the people around that area are very much on edge, understandably so.
Yeah. Well, there's a killer on the loose here, and one of the reports that came out there, and I would like to know. Once, say, Arkansas State Police receive some information, if the accounts that we heard are true, there was no alert made to the public for 6 hours. I do not know 100% if that's the truth, but we're going by off of these media reports.
There was a media report saying
Yes.
it took 6 hours before the
you-
public knew there was a murderer.
Are there advantages and disadvantages to that 6 hour window there? Because I'm a little bit confused. If the killer has not been caught, why an alert was not made for 6 hours?
Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get, and let me make sure everybody understands that the Arkansas State Police, they're usually not the ones that receive the first call or that they respond to.
Right,
the
it's
initial,
local precincts, right.
It's local jurisdiction, and the state police under state law is defined as an assisting agency, and so. The assistance of the Arkansas State Police has to be requested either through the local jurisdiction, the municipality or the county, ever who's conducting the initial investigation, or they can open up an investigation at the request of a prosecuting attorney just to cover it all. So once that request is made, and then by the time they respond, a lot of times they are responding to a crime scene that may not actually be exactly the way it may have been.
It may have been altered already.
Thank you. Yes, and it may have been. And we dealt, and I've dealt with that for 30-some years, and that's no fault. It's just the way the law is that we're an assisting agency.
Well, you're only as good as that first response there,
and, so,
and if they've tainted the crime
6
scene in
hours
some way.
delay, I wouldn't point the finger at the state police over that or anybody really. I just say, hey, sometimes it takes a little while to get officers at the scene.
Yeah, and also you're talking about the local jurisdiction going first in the middle of nowhere.
That's
having
right.
to actually go
So-
find it. So
Yeah.
find
That's a good
them,
point.
find the bodies, and then figure it out, and then request Arkansas State Police.
And then if you put out an alert, you want to make sure that the information you put out is credible information. And so if you just haphazardly throw information out there, I don't know what they had. I was not there. I'm not privy to that information, but based on my experience, you want to make sure that you give good information out there as quickly as possible to help capture who it is that's committed this crime. So, I wouldn't, I know they're working hard. I mean, all the resources are being devoted to that area. There's no doubt. I know that for a fact. And
Well, I'm not trying to insinuate
no,
that Barney
and I know you're
Barney
not.
Fife
I
is
just want
running
to,
the
I just
operation
want
here,
the
but
listeners though to
yeah.
make sure they understand that there's resources are. I mean, everybody's working hard on this.
No, I mean, and so the initial map here, he comes out of Devil's Den, and he either goes north on 170 or he goes south on 220. And is the conventional wisdom here. And so at this point,
if he is driving away from that versus a lot of mountainous Ozark Mountains to hide in there to your west and your east. So what you're looking at there is a road that runs north and south, sort of. So you've got a lot of mountainous areas there where they could be hiding to the east and the west.
And you just got to wonder, what are the surveillance capabilities at this point?
You're talking about helicopters?
Cameras, are there interstate cameras? Are there interstate No? There's no interstate.
I know of.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not familiar with them. There may be.
Well, I'm not necessarily arguing for them as somebody who doesn't necessarily want, all of this surveillance. But you do have to wonder. We've speculated that the photo that we saw here a second ago that this photo may actually be from a
game camera.
game camera.
Yeah.
You think that's the case?
That's what I would guess. I
certainly
don't know,
appears
but I
that
would
way.
say it was probably a game camera.
Yeah,
or,
so this dude just walking in front of someone's
yeah,
game
it's just
camera
somebody's
here,
game camera.
and they
that's,
searched it.
and that's what the request has been to all the local people. Hey, if you've got game cameras out, if you've got it, go check them. Just see, because
and unfortunately they would have to go, like, so someone who is willing to commit this evil crime, is this the kind of person who's been lying in wait for days, and they spot this couple, this unlucky family. Unfortunately we're just left with a lot of speculation here at this point.
and that's always been the case, on the front end, as law enforcement are gathering, trying to put everything together. The public is always they don't really know everything law enforcement is doing, and many times law enforcement can't always share with them everything they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, there is an investigation to be conducted, and at some point somebody's going to have to be brought to justice, and so. You want to make sure that the information that you release is helpful. It gets this person taken into custody. There's an arrest made, but at the same time, you don't want to do something to jeopardize the case.
Right.
And you've got to be extremely careful there.
Yeah.
And I would imagine the FBI I think they're offering assistance at this point anyway.
I would think they probably would be.
And forgive my ignorance here, and you may know this as former law enforcement, but can the FBI come in and just take over? I mean, we see that on
TV,
on Law and Order all the time.
Who's in charge here? I am. Not anymore.
Not. Yeah.
And it's the FBI.
Right. So who knows, right? But can the FBI?
The FBI would be in the same situation that I described as state police. State police could not go in and say we're taking over this crime scene, but I've never ever witnessed an issue where the local agency having jurisdiction didn't say, please, they'd ask for that help from the state police because they know they've got a lot more resources. Mm-hmm. But it would be the same, too, as a request could be made from the state police for assistance from the FBI and any other law enforcement officer.
So how long did you work for the Arkansas State Police?
37 years.
37 years. So you were, as we call them here in Arkansas, state troopers?
I spent my entire career in the Highway Patrol. I never was in the Criminal Investigation Division. I was in the Highway Patrol. I retired as the troop commander over Troop B out of Newport, and so that was where I retired at. And while I was with the state police, I was the supervisor of the first drug interdiction team on the eastern side of the state. I was a SWAT team leader, and I was one of the first officers, if not the first officer, trained in Arkansas as a hostage negotiator by the FBI hostage negotiation team. So I really tried to be involved in my career, and I did all that as I was rewarded by being promoted to troop commander and sent to run that troop over at Newport for almost 18 years. So
when you're talking about a hostage negotiator, and I would assume, because I've read Chris Voss's book, he's a great. He was. Oh no! Listen, folks. Anybody that's watching this, we don't go in with a whole lot of notes. We just have some news stories and all of that stuff.
It's off the cuff.
We just
most
spitball
of the
all
time.
of this stuff.
Right.
But what I do want to bring this up, and FBI hostage negotiator Chris Voss, he was a former person, and he talked about getting to the heart of what their motivations are and like what they're wanting. And when we looked at two tragedies that happened, one here in Arkansas and then one here the day before in New York, where this guy went into the office of he was trying to go to the NFL's headquarters,
right,
and goes in and murders 4 people and then kills himself. That guy went in with the motivation that he's never walking out of this place, right? He's going in to cause as much destruction as he can, and he's not going to walk out of that place. This guy finds this couple, and of course I'm trying to project on this, but I can only go off of what I see. He finds this couple and he murders them in front of their children, and and he is now on the run. And so it's not like he murdered these couple and then kills himself. So what I say is this guy's motivation is to cause more damage. Now, that's just, again, I'm just speculating here, versus someone who wanted to go in and make a statement before he ended his life. This guy, to me, is infinitely more dangerous because how much damage can he do until he's found?
Yeah.
Right? And we're talking about that motivation. When you investigated people versus, did you look at what they're doing versus what they're trying to do? How much weight did you put to what you believe their motivations were, whether it be hostage negotiation or what?
Well, the motivation, you've got to try to figure out, especially if you're going to negotiate with them, what is their motivation? Why are they doing this? There's a reason they've taken someone. If you're talking about a hostage situation, there's a reason they've taken that person or someone as a hostage, and you've got to figure out why. Why are they holding him as a hostage? What are they trying to accomplish? And then you have to start negotiating with that individual, to determine that, and then try to get them to, at some point, to be able to release them, and without getting into all that. But motivation is a big part of it. But this is not a hostage situation. This is an individual that's taken the life of two innocent people, like you said, did it right in front of their children, and so
Evil.
At some point this individual will be called, and then
he will.
a lot of those questions. But this is always, this is common on the front end of a crime like of this magnitude, that a lot of questions, but those questions eventually get answered.
Yeah. So I watch Criminal Minds, which is a great show, and they talk about the the unknown subject here, and they always try to get in their heads. And it's just I guess I find it fascinating in a morbid way, like trying to get inside this guy's head. Like, why would he do such an evil act here? And of course, trying to get inside their head, does that lead us to eventually find them? So,
well, speaking of crazy people and trying to get inside their head, we do have this other story out of Virginia, which is actually the headline.
Yeah, this just happened today, right?
And this is absolutely, you talk about morbid. A Virginia lawmaker, he's a city councilman in Danville City, Virginia. His name is J. Lee Volger. He was at his job at Showcase Magazine when a suspect entered the room carrying a 5-gallon container full of gasoline and dumped it all over the politician. A politician then runs trying to get out, pretty sure he knew what was coming, and the suspect chased him down and set him on fire. And he apparently, according to reports, he was responsive when they flew him to the burn center, but now everyone is kind of doing a deep dive on the arrest. They arrested this guy just up the street with no incident. So he was walking down the street, the guy who lit the other guy on fire. His name is Shotzi Michael Buck Hayes, 29. Every report that I have read so far says that these two knew each other and the attack was not politically motivated. It was not, is what they're saying. They're saying they had a disagreement about something else. Mm-hmm. So while everybody is trying to get into the mind of this guy, who I also understand has an arrest record, I also have read that this guy maybe has had some mental problems, and so maybe that's what it was. Go ahead.
I would sure hope that you are mentally insane if you're going to douse somebody with gasoline and set them on fire.
Yeah, and I would in our polarized political society, it's crazy that you would do something like this and it not be about politics. So that leads me to my next question, which is if this guy is not crazy, which he could just be crazy, what actions or action would drive somebody to do something like this? Wow. To go into a fit of rage? The disagreement has to be. It could, and I'm speculating here, but I mean, I immediately thought he's either crazy or there's something going on. Maybe there's infidelity or something like that. I mean, that's the only thing I could figure out.
Well, and just because the initial report said it was not politically motivated,
right?
You still
True.
You still can't rule that out, and
especially coming out of Virginia. I'm sorry, I just don't trust that.
With the way things, some of the incidents and things that have been that have happened over the last few months involving politicians, right. And I can tell you this: I know I'm a lot more alert to my surroundings. Of course, I've always been pretty alert to them because of my background, but I've told my colleagues, just keep your head on the swivel.
Yeah.
Because society has really changed.
Yeah.
There's crazies on both sides of the aisle. We
It's
need to
just
acknowledge
people
that.
are- yeah.
You know.
So
And what do you do? You know, what do you say? What do you say to a person who is wanting to get into politics when you see stuff like this? Because if I did see one report that this city councilman, even though those are nonpartisan positions, is in the GOP. And in the state of Virginia, that seems a little bit. Although Virginia, I keep ripping on Virginia from a perspective of like I don't trust it, and maybe it's because it's of the left. But there's only a certain portion of Virginia.
There's some good old boys in Virginia.
That's right.
Down
That's
in the
right.
southern
Yeah.
part.
That's right.
You don't want to
And
mess with them.
That's
Right.
and that's what I'm saying. And so if you're a person that's wanting to get into politics, my gosh, when you're seeing this, and then you saw up in Minnesota, two politicians and their family, right? And so, shot dead. So, I mean, it's just when did it get this way? Now, somebody would say, well, it's all the way back to JFK, right? The CIA vote, whatever. But I'm like, that's the CIA versus everyday citizens getting radicalized and committing these heinous acts. I don't know how we got here.
I don't know. Say a prayer for City Councilman Volger, because I can't imagine. I can't imagine. They
He's
say it's
awful
one of the
young.
worst. That's like one of the worst ways to die or be injured. But allegedly he was still alive, and so who knows how much of the gas actually got on him? Was it the whole 5 gallons, or was
But
it?
depending on how much, I hate to say it, but sometimes like you can be so burned up that
Yeah. There's nothing.
Excuse me. Is it better? Is it better that you lived? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, just say a prayer for his
considering the
family.
pain.
Say a prayer for all of that. All right. So we're winding things down here. We've got about 4 minutes left in the show. So I'm going to end on this note. Dwight Tosh, state representative from Arkansas. We really appreciate you being on the program. I just want to take a moment. I want to get your reaction on this. Congressman Rick Crawford, our representative. He's from this area. He is like one of 8 people that gets the same. Of the entire country, he's one of 8 people that gets the exact same morning intelligence brief, I believe, that President Donald Trump does. He is the chair of the Permanent Select Committee on the House Intelligence, and he doesn't give a lot of interviews, but he's been making the rounds recently because, and then I'm not saying that's a bad thing that he doesn't give a lot of interviews. I'm just saying he's in the news. He's in the news now because he is, he declassified this report that essentially exposed the Obama administration creating the Russian hoax out of whole cloth. On January 6, 2017, documents suggest the deep state was setting up its own brand of insurrection, pushing an intelligence community assessment filled with the dubious information and sourcing that Crawford believes was designed to topple President-elect Donald Trump's first term in office. Quote, "Forgive me for being coarse, but these intelligence analysts, for lack of a better term, crapped all over the Intelligence Community Directive 203. They did not follow it in the slightest," Crawford said on his latest episode of the Federalist Radio Hour. He was referring to the analytic standards the CIA agents and analysts must follow. They didn't. They ignored it. They went forward. This is a great headline. House Intel Chair declassified docs show Obama-directed PSYOP. Our entire country was put through a psychological operation that essentially destroyed the chances of Trump having a successful first term. And the guy that's doing this, the guy that is possibly uncovering the greatest scandal in American history, is our Congressman, Rick Crawford. What are your thoughts on that, Representative Tosh?
Well, of course, obviously, I've known Rick and Congressman Crawford, and we've worked close together over the years. Obviously, he's at the federal level, I'm at the state level, but he's a good guy. He's on top of things, and I'm proud of the fact that he's leading the charge. I think he knows what
incredible.
he's doing, and I think it is incredible. And I think, like I said, I think he's the right man.
He's been in Congress for 15 years, and it just seems like he's kept his head down for the most part, just done his job. We talked about this on previous shows, and now, he has this very, very powerful position, and he's using it and saying, look, what's happened in the past just ain't right, folks, and we're not doing this anymore.
Yeah, and again, I can't imagine knowing what he's known this whole time and having to keep his mouth shut when the narrative is Russia put Trump in office. He's a Russian, but he knows the truth the whole time. But he has to wait until there's actually people in power that'll declassify. This was one of the most highly classified documents that America had.
Yeah.
And now it's out, and it exposes them all.
And what did it do? We talked about it on previous shows here. It just derailed Trump's first presidency. We had 2.5 years. We even saw an impeachment because of it. It wasn't the direct result of it, but they tried, right? And it led to this whole, over a phone call. We've now impeached him over a phone call. But we saw this for the first 2.5 years, and conservatives feel like his entire first term was derailed by this bull,
Well, Rick's pretty savvy, and so I don't think he'll be hoodwinked by anybody. So
let's hope.
He knows he knows what he's doing.
Let's hope.
Yeah, he's no freshman member of Congress getting the wool pulled over his eyes.
State Representative Dwight Tosh, sir, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you, Paul. Good to be
Appreciate
back
it.
with you, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Glad to be here with you.
Folks, that wraps up for today. We appreciate you being with us. Rob and I will be back here tomorrow at 4. I'll be hosting the Millstone Report at 12 Central on X America News. And until then, everybody be safe. God bless.